and you're watching The Week Ahead with LCG, discussing the week beginning the 9th of May. Joining me now is Head Analyst Brenda Kelly. Brenda, what's on your radar for next week?
Well, it's a big week, really, in terms of macro, and it all kicks off with the Eurogroup meeting on Monday, where the focus will be on Greece yet again. And the agenda really is about the debt sustainability and whether the IMF are going to come back into the fold in terms of really helping Greece out in terms of their fiscal targets. But I'm not expecting a huge amount of movement, certainly not in the euro. It's really very much constrained to the individual sovereign markets of these countries now, which is a good thing. The contagion effect of Greece does seem to have really kind of come to an end at this particular point. But, you know, there will be another meeting more than likely on the 24th of May, but the real deadline comes at the end of July, the 20th of July, when Greece has to pay back about 3 billion in debt and interest repayments to the ECB. So you'd like to think that they'll come to some conclusion ahead of that. But if we don't, then we're in for a summer fairly similar to last year, one would imagine. Ahead of that, then, you know, we do have a lot of Eurozone data. Certainly you've got German industrial orders, you've got France industrial production, and the trade balance for Germany as well. Now,
GDP from Germany and the euro as well.
Precisely, that comes up on the Friday. Now, I do feel that, you know, despite, you know, evidence to the contrary over the last few months, there is a certain amount of bounce taking place within the Eurozone at the moment, and that could, you know, continue to look good. If you look at where the preliminary GDP was for the first quarter, it was 0.6% for the entire Eurozone, and we've seen upward revisions to the final April PMI as well. So that could obviously limit the euro downside. My trade wouldn't be euro dollar, it'd be more related to euro sterling at the moment, because of course we have to bear in mind that we have the Bank of England also meeting next week, and we will have their inflation report as well. Now, given that the referendum takes place on the 23rd of June, it's very unlikely we'll see anything happening in terms of any changes, but we could see some extra maybe voting for a cut to the rate, and that could send the pound back that bit lower. So my trade really will be on the basis of euro sterling, and any break above that 79.05 level will be the one to watch for me, because I think we could head up quite naturally towards the 80 level and possibly beyond that, assuming everything remains as I'm expecting it to.
You mentioned obviously UK and the Bank of England a lot there. We've got a bit of UK data coming out next week as well. We've got industrial production, manufacturing production, and of course you mentioned the inflation report as well. Anything seriously different or that interesting expected from that data there? Well,
industrial production there is probably going to come in at about 1.9% rise on the month. You've seen a bit of an expansion in that particular area. Now, it has been fairly weak across the board, but, you know, I don't think it's going to really disappoint the market. The expectation last time was about minus 1.1, expecting a small little bounce on it at this particular point, but nothing really to write home about. I think the writing is on the wall. The UK economy is definitely slowing, and even looking at housing market activity over the last while, it has obviously cooled. And we'll see the RICS house price balance on Thursday as well, which could feed into that and give us a little bit more clue as to how softening the economy is. And of course, the Brexit risks are starting to filter in as, you know, people delay either buying houses or, you know, taking up jobs or giving jobs or creating jobs ahead of the actual number. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Bank of England does in respect of its inflation report on the back of that, because we might actually come to expect perhaps two different options where they have, you know, an inflation report forecast based on a Brexit and an inflation report forecast based on the UK staying in the EU. So it'll be a very interesting week, and we're still not clear exactly what the Bank of England are going to do.
What about China? I mean, at the beginning of the week, we've got Chinese inflation and PPI for April, and right at the end of the week, well, Saturday, we've also got industrial production, retail sales, and fixed asset investment. What's the story with China right now? We're seeing quite a mixture of data in terms of some sectors improving, some sectors not improving, and obviously the whole yuan fix as well at the moment. What's your view?
Well, I think we're going to probably see a sort of stability in the inflation there on Tuesday when it comes out, around 2.3% year on year. Now, the price of fresh vegetables and pork have stabilised, and they have released a lot of their pork reserves in order to stabilise the prices even more. It's a massive industry for them. So we've seen a certain amount of a recovery in commodity prices. But again, a lot of that is down to China, and it's down to the retail trader trading commodities, because there are fewer regulations on it than than, say, on the Shanghai Composite. So you do question whether or not the upside we've seen recently in metals has been built on sand. So I would still expect to see a certain amount of softening in the Chinese economy, but I don't really note that we're going to see it in the data this week.
Okay, just to wrap up then, you mentioned euro sterling earlier. Is there any other interesting FX pairs that you're keeping an eye on next week?
Well, FX pair is probably not the right word. I'd say gold is probably one I'm watching at the moment, because gold is more commodity than a currency as far as I'm concerned, but they're open to interpretation. The fact that the non-farm payrolls came in lower than expectations this time round does, put any June hike off the table. Anyone who thought there was a June hike was pretty crazy in my opinion anyway. But we have, pushed up towards 12.92. If we close the week out above that particular level, I'll be looking for 13.05, and a break above that brings us up towards the 13.33 level.
Okay, Brenda, thank you very much for joining us. That was Brenda Kelly there joining me for the week ahead. Now that's all for this week's edition, but join us next week. Goodbye for now.